Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our presentation on Hi there. Welcome to our presentation on verbal communication. This is a part of our series on employability skills. This is a two-part series. In the first part, I'll come to the contents. Before we come to the contents, let's pause this. I'll suggest you pause this video for a while and think if you have been lately impressed with the verbal communication of anyone, be it in your office, your school, your community, your family. What did you like? What did you notice? What impressed you? Think over it. Once you have done that, restart the video. Verbal communication is not a skill in isolation. It depends on a lot of other accompanying skills. It depends on non-verbal communication, listening, clarification, and negotiation. So while in this session and in the subsequent session, we will be discussing only about verbal communication, but I will caution you that you cannot look at it in isolation without taking cognizance of the other related factors. The contents of this module are opening communication, reinforcement, effective listening, questioning, summarizing, and closing communication. Opening communication is the first aspect, which is the most vital aspect, because as they say, the first impression lasts long. It is an important opportunity. It's an opportunity which can set the tone, which can create how the subsequent interaction and communication is perceived and observed and understood. The opening communication, of course, includes all the formalities, including the handshakes and greetings. Do take care to include cultural sensitivities and the local cultural aspects into the greetings. The most vital aspect in the opening of a communication is to maintain eye contact. It would show that you are interested in meeting the individuals, you are interested in the communication, and you are involved at the moment. Having a pleasant smile and a very warm demeanor would go a long way in terms of establishing the proper environment for communication. It's very important that you start with an icebreaker, and the icebreaker could be anything which involves your listener. Could be something related to their office, could be something related to the weather, could be related to the travel and your experience while traveling to the location where the communication is taking place. It could also be related to something which is related to your workplace or your personal side, and it can be short and sweet, or rather it should be short and sweet, and just lighten up the environment. What would be very important in the communication process, in verbal communication, is that there needs to be clarity of speech. You need to be remaining calm and focused and polite, following the basic rules of etiquettes that you have learned through your life and also in training in your communication classes. One important aspect about the opening of the communication is to ensure that it's perceived that you are interested in the communication and you are not disinterested. After you open the communication, the most important aspect regarding verbal communication is reinforcement, which includes usage of encouraging words and gestures. Typically, nonverbal gestures are nonverbal gestures such as head nods and eye contact and warm facial expression are the most important aspects. But do also use words of encouragement. Do also include words like understood, okay. If there is any questions you want to ask the speaker, you could probably give a signal like raising your hand, or unless of course the speaker has said that he would be taking questions post the session. But any kind of questions or encouraging words or and along with non-verbal gestures would go a long way in acting as a source of encouragement and as a positive reinforcement. It helps to allay fears of the speaker, of the listeners, all the group members. It reduces the nervousness aspect and the shyness among the group members, along with the speaker. The group is encouraged to participate and share their views if the setting is that of a group discussion or a group activity. It fosters the relationship between the speaker and the listener. It creates instances and moments where the speaker is induced to add additional insights and views apart from what he has planned, because there is some amount of communication feedback which is coming from the listener in terms of him communicating whether he's able to understand or not, or he's able to he's finding it difficult to understand the communication. The next important aspect after reinforcement is of course effective listening. Effective listening is the most important skill, but unfortunately it is the often missed skill. You need to train yourself to listen. There are a number of people who are very fond of speaking, and sometimes when you train yourself to speak, you tend to go on. In any communication which is verbal, listening is a more important aspect than speaking. This is because listening aids in shaping and directing what should be spoken, and hence you need to train yourself to listen. Effective listening basically refers to active listening, and typically communicators tend to spend more energy in what they are saying than tend to spend energy in listening. And we would advise that active listening is more essential. So you need to create environment and a condition which is suitable to engage in active listening, which means that there shouldn't be too much of distraction, background environmental noises, and in the place of communication, or there should not be an expectancy of an event among the speaker or the listener. If you are in a conversation or in a presentation and you are constantly looking out of the window expecting someone to drop into your office or workplace because that had been discussed earlier, you would be creating an environment which is not conducive to effective listening. You need to be prepared to listen, and very important aspect is that avoid being prejudiced about anything. Have an open mind, avoid distractions. Very important that you avoid early judgment. Let the speaker start his presentation or communication and speak about his thoughts, give data points, and assimilate and take in as much of information that the speaker gives you, evaluate them, if required question back, if required ask clarification. You can be judgmental probably after that, probably after the session is over, probably in your free time after the interaction is over. If you are in that interaction as a judge and you are supposed to be judging the communication, in that case it makes sense to be judgmental. Otherwise, it is not the appropriate way to handle the situation. The next aspect in communications will be covered in as a part of the part 2. This concludes our presentation on verbal communication, and part 1 we would join you again on the part 2 of this communication on verbal communication, where we would be covering the remaining aspects, that is questioning, summarizing and closing communications. Thank you for joining us. See you in the part 2 of this video. Thank you.